What is going on, Hive Warriors? So today we have another meta-analysis. It's like they don't stop coming for intermittent fasting. These meta-analyses keep on showing us why intermittent fasting is actually a powerful tool, a powerful intervention tool that helps you lose weight, contrary to what a lot of fitness gurus or dietitians are trying to tell you in terms of the fasting or intermittent fasting fear mongering. Now, let's take a quick look at that study and I'll summarize the study. I will link the study down below if you want to take a look at the entire study, as a meta-analysis is incredibly detailed. But we're going to look at the key points that were pointed out in this study. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So here we're seeing what the study was trying to do. And now remember, meta-analysis sits at the top of study hierarchy. So please understand that every study is not equal. If I find one study that simply says intermittent fasting doesn't work, and I find a meta-analysis that says intermittent fasting does work, the meta-analysis is much more powerful than that single individual study. Because what a meta-analysis does is that it includes a bunch of different studies. And depending on how they include the study, the criteria of how that study gets put into the system for them to synthesize the full data of everything is also important. And when they do it with randomized controlled trials, it's even more powerful. So it's a randomized controlled trial meta-analysis. You can't beat that. That is really powerful. And one individual study here and one individual study there, it's not going to be more potent than a meta-analysis, because biology is complicated and it's hard to know or pinpoint for every single person. So the more data we have, the more closer to the truth we are, basically. But we're never 100% close to we're never 100% at the truth. We get closer with more sample size, longer time frames, meta-analysis, etc. All right, so what are they looking for here? Effectiveness of intermittent fasting diet versus regular diet on fat loss in overweight and obese middle-aged and elderly people. I would say elderly in this section, but elderly people without metabolic disease. And it's a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. Very, very powerful meta-analysis setup, right? So what they're looking for is as the number of adults aged over 40 with obesity increases dramatically, intermittent fasting interventions may help them to lose fat and weight. This systematic review investigated the most recent research on the effects of intermittent fasting and a regular diet on body composition and lipids in adults aged over 40 with obesity without the metabolic disease. So basically, healthy-ish overweight people from 40 and older, right? That's what they're looking for. And this study is technically super new, right? And by super new, I mean it's March 2024, which is the technical release of this published study. However, this just dropped, so this is really a February study, but it will be marked as March 2024. That's how new this study, like, it just dropped by Qi Yao and colleagues. I think this was a group in China that put together this meta-analysis and synthesized all this data. Now let's look at the conclusion of this. In conclusion, IF had a reduction in body weight, body mass index, fat mass, and triglycerides in adults aged over 40 with obesity without metabolic disease compared to regular diet. And IF did not cause a significant decrease in lean body mass. This is important. I'll talk about this right now, which suggests healthy and effective fat loss. However, more long-term and high-quality trials are needed to reach definitive conclusions. As I said, no study ever tells you the full story, but it gets us closer to what the story could be. Now, notice how they said it did not cause a significant decrease in lean body mass. That's an important thing, because a lot of people always come to me, Oh man, Fledge, why are you always saying you're gonna lose all your muscle? I don't say that you're gonna lose all your muscle. I just say that it is not as optimal as consistently eating for protecting muscle. Not as optimal does not mean regression. Not as optimal does not mean losing, right? It just means you're not gonna be, as fast or as potent as the other guy, but you're still gonna be in a net positive, right? You're still gonna be doing, it's still gonna be good for you. But the trade-off is that in fat, when it comes to fat loss, intermittent fasting does indeed hold that the weight of being a bit better than every other diet that we've seen when it's put up against it in terms of the fat loss specifically. So it's choose your own thing that you want to focus on. Are you more, or do you care about muscle more, or do you care about body fat more? But understanding that you will still build muscle and retain muscle at a very optimal level. It's simply just not going to be the most optimal level. That's it. That's all it is. And when you're comparing it, but of course you have to try your best to maintain and build muscle. So you have to be eating protein at a good, significant grams per day. You also have to be doing exercise. It's not going to just stay on your body for no reason if you're not doing anything, right? So you have to be mindful of a lot of these different things, but it's not that it is horrific for muscle, but it is definitely not the best. But that doesn't mean that it is bad. So I hope that you guys understand that, because I'm always getting people like, oh man, you're saying this and you're saying that. When I'm comparing these studies, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about what's most optimal. All right, so let's go ahead and go all the way down here. Let's see with the charts, as we're not going to break down everything, but right here. So now these dots are where the study landed in terms of, for example, effectiveness of IF on body weight, and then BMI, and then fat percentage and everything. On the left, it favors the experimental group, which is intermittent fasting. On the right, it favors the control group, which is the regular diet group. Now, if you see the dots, the lines represents the possibility, right, of being, it could be all the way over here or all the way over there, but it is the mean is right here in the center of the line. So you'll see that intermittent fasting, for the most part, according to all of these different studies, wins out. You can see that the green dot is favoring intermittent fasting when it comes to overall body weight in comparison to the regular diet group. When it comes to effectiveness on BMI, you can see that again, intermittent fasting beats out the control group, the regular diet group. When it comes to effectiveness on body fat percentage, you can see that it dramatically beats out the control group here with intermittent fasting. When it shows the effectiveness of lean body mass, you can see that it is fairly comparable to the regular diet group, as there's a dot here, there's one in the center, there's one on this side, one here, one on that side, one here, one on this side, and one also in the center, slightly leaning towards the control group. So very comparable, pretty much the same. And then when we see effectiveness on IF, effectiveness of IF on fat mass, it is insanely on the side favoring the experimental group, which is intermittent fasting, over the regular diet, as not one dot is on the right side for the regular diet group. Crazy, but expected. I expect these things because intermittent fasting, it partitions your calories to break down fat, because there's the added element of going into ketosis or using your body fats as ketones to provide your body with energy when you've depleted all of your glycogen from your body, which is what happens when you go into that post-absorptive range, that metabolic switchover after not eating for a certain period of time. So it's baked into intermittent fasting, even if the fitness gurus that you like to watch or the ones that you hear about try to negate this and try to not, try to act as as if this doesn't exist. So let's go down all the way to the summary. In summary, with this meta-analysis, we found that IF resulted in significant reductions in fat mass compared to the regular diet, with no significant effect on lean body mass. Previously, the studies conducted by IF suggested that during fat loss, there may be some fat-free mass loss. However, through a comprehensive analysis of randomized control trials, we found that compared with regular diet, IF caused weight loss mainly due to fat mass reduction rather than a significant loss of fat-free mass, and then maintaining body functions by minimizing body fat and maximizing fat-free mass retention. Really interesting. Thus, confirming the objective effectiveness of IF for healthy fat loss. It's not just fat loss. When people tell you, oh, yeah, sure, you're going to lose weight with IF, but is it healthy? Absolutely not. No, these studies are consistently seeing that it is a tool that you can use, and you don't have to force yourself to do something else because the fat loss is bad fat loss. No, it's just as good. It's healthy fat loss. And when it comes to the fat itself, you might be in the most optimal level when you're doing intermittent fasting for fat loss specifically. At the same time, compared with some studies on calorie restriction, the significant reduction in body weight also caused a significant reduction in fat-free mass. So IF may be more worthwhile way to consider for fat loss than this. So look at this. At the same time, compared with some studies on caloric restriction, the significant reduction in body weight also caused a significant reduction in fat-free mass. And they have some cited studies here. So IF may be more worthwhile according to this study. I have to say according to this study because to me, you could pick calorie restriction, you could pick intermittent fasting. They have their pros and cons. The pros from intermittent fasting are more appealing to me than just caloric restriction. But this meta-analysis and the way they are observing all of this data, they are saying that it is IF may be more worthwhile way to consider for fat loss than just normal calorie restriction. IF will be suitable for all adults aged over 40 with obesity, as this study is looking at those 40 and older. Although we've seen meta-analysis with people of all ages and younger people as well. But this one specifically looking at 40 and over. So conclusion, the systematic review and meta-analysis demonstrated that IF may improve body weight, body mass index, fat mass, and triglycerides as compared to a regular diet in adults aged over 40 with obesity without the metabolic disease. IF causes weight loss in this middle-aged and elderly. When they say elderly, is driving me crazy because my brain wants to say elderly population, mainly due to the reduction in fat mass, keeping lean body mass intact, making it a healthy and effective weight loss solution. Now, are there limitations to the study? Of course, right? The study wasn't for the past 12 weeks. 12 weeks was the maximum of all of the different studies that they put together. So we have to see things that are more long-term. That's important. We have to see what happened after the study over time. That's important, right? How long were they able to stick to it? That's important as well. The regular diet group were not an intervention at all, right? They did their normal diet, and that diet was pit up against intermittent fasting, right? So that's also a limitation there. But it's showing that when given this interjected intervention of intermittent fasting, how powerful it could be when just doing this regular diet without a system behind it. Intermittent fasting is really, really powerful in comparison to that. And they still was able to maintain the same amount of fat-free mass, lean mass, muscle mass, if you will, in comparison to that regular diet group. So it's incredibly important to keep on looking at these different studies, these meta-analysis of, even if they're doing it in different ranges, and looking at regular diet and looking at people who did specific caloric restrictions, as we've seen other meta-analysis with people that did caloric restriction and it was completely controlled to the point where they controlled exactly what they ate to match it with those that did intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting still had better fat loss, even if it was below the p-value of 0.05 of statistical significance. It was still more body fat loss in the intermittent fasting group, showing that there is a potency in body fat reduction for intermittent fasting throughout all of these different studies that we've seen. Even the ones that say it doesn't matter, they're the same, look at it, the numbers are virtually the same. There's always a difference with the fat being reduced more with the intermittent fasting group. And usually muscle is a little bit is less effective with the intermittent fasting group, while the muscle is more effective with the calorie restriction group, but the fat mass is less effective. Even if it's a slight difference, there's always an edge to intermittent fasting when it comes to that fat loss. And here it is dramatically in favor of intermittent fasting when pit up against regular diets, where people are losing weight, but they're not given any specific dietary system to use. They use whatever diet they want to use. All right. Let me know down in the comment section below, what do you guys think about this study? I think meta-analyses are amazing. These are my favorite studies to look at. I will link this study down in the description box below if you want to take a look at every detail of the study for yourself, because that is important. Don't just take my word for it. Go ahead and look at that, because that's that's an important thing. A lot of people just take the words of whatever anybody says, and that's why everyone's lost. Wait, I thought they said intermittent fasting doesn't work because this study and this. There's a study for every single conclusion that you want to exist out there. How powerful are those studies? How potent are those studies? What studies are trump those studies? And where are we with the breadth of studies looking at that specific question, right? Intermittent fasting, weight loss, calorie restriction, what have you. All right, until the next one, guys, peace out.